Welcome. You are at the CCC.
Where there are no outside issues. My name is Anthony. I'm an addict and an alcoholic, another bozo on the bus, and I care about you.
Yes, and I'm LouiLou. My pronouns are he and him. I'm recovering for crystal meth and alcohol, and I am always in search of balance. And each week we strive to foster a brave space where we can engage in conversations centered around topics of recovery.
And our intention is to hold and inspire better spaces for more people in recovery by tackling issues sometimes used to separate us.
But before we do that, please like, share, comment, and rate this episode.
Rate it. If, again, you're only going to give us 5 stars. Comment if you have nice things to say. If you have some constructive feedback, send us a message.
Yeah, send us a message, because it's like one of the features of a lot of the new ones is like,
yeah,
click on and it makes it really easy.
Yeah, we love when we get emails. We love when you see us on the street and you tell us nice things.
You love our voice. Hey.
Yay. So, hey, Louis.
Disclaimer.
The disclaimer, and now the disclaimer is the thoughts and opinions expressed on the CCC are ours alone. We do not represent anyone but ourselves. In other words, we're just a couple of friends behind a mic here to entertain you. And of course, everything we talk about is for general information purposes only. Hi, Louis.
Hi.
Hi. How are you? I'm pretty good.
I'm good. Good.
It was nice to talk to you before we started recording.
I know. I always enjoy talking to you. It's like, you know what? I feel like.
What do you feel like?
For me, it's like the people in my life, like I want to lift them and pour into their life, and when they do the same, it's like I feel like the people that I constantly like gravitate back towards they're the ones who, like, even if they're not doing it deliberately, they're challenging me, they're encouraging me through what they do, you know. And I feel like I get to become a better version of myself because of my relationship with them.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Love to hear that.
Yeah, it's a nice segue into.
It's a nice segue into today's topic. But before we jump into today's topic,
how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm feeling grounded. Today is a day where, I'm reminded that because I'm sober, mm-hmm. I get to have all of my feelings.
Oh God, yes.
And that makes life rich.
That's the interesting thing about feelings. Like, I think that this is what, makes women in some ways stronger, because of their ability to kind of connect with their feelings, and how as men we were kind of taught to suppress them.
Okay, I'm glad you said that second part, because I was like, I don't know if we should be saying universal things like that. But I do think that if we think about, at least in the United States, there is a way that when women... when women are being raised, right, there's more permission there for a young girl, for example, to be expressive. It's expected, right? And where young boys are kind of conditioned.
Boys don't cry.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly got that message growing up.
Exactly.
My mom said boys don't cry. And so at some point I stopped crying.
Or like when I was young, I would hug and kiss my father and my uncles and everything. And as you get older, it's like, what? Nope, we don't touch.
Yeah. Well, for me, I like that. For me, culturally, that still happens. We're still affectionate to each other.
I hug and kiss my daddy. No,
oh my
I'm
God,
kidding.
Louis.
I'm kidding. Don't have a daddy. Just kidding. Don't have a daddy.
Don't have a daddy, and I don't have kids.
Not my story. Exactly.
So today's topic is friendships and recovery, the love that saves us. And you said you love that second part of.
I do.
The love.
It's like,
tell me more.
Well, okay, so I feel like, especially when we first come into the rooms.
Yeah.
Like some of us, and myself included,
mm-hmm.
I thought that I had to be already at a certain place with my recovery and my understanding of spirituality, everything. Like when you come into the rooms, I was messy. I was not the person that I am today. I'm still a little messy, but whatever. It's a controlled mess. But I heard, find your tribe, find your group, find people who get you, who release you to be just who you are. And I was able to, when you find those people who, number one, who understand that I may not be perfect right now, or I may not be where I want to be, but I'm working on it. And so I'm going to love you and be patient with you and give you an opportunity to get to a place. You know, I'm not going to throw you away just because you make mistakes. Like I always include in my gratitude list that idea of forgiveness. Forgiveness of myself and for others for not being who I want you to be or who I expect you to be. And when you have people like that who just love you, who kind of, and not in a doormatty kind of way where they just put up with anything that you give, but they pull you to the side and say, hey, no, that was not okay. Like what you did was unacceptable. You know, it's kind of like what we were talking about in the last episode about setting a boundary. I was like, honey, I'm not going to be that whipping post for you. Like if you have a friend who only comes and gives you the stuff and is never there when you need to give it back. And I was like, I'm all, okay, here's the deal. You know what? If you're paying me, but do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, that's why I love it. It's like, and when I first came to San Francisco, it was, I don't want to say it was running, but it may have been running away from my life from before, because before here, I was just finding out and understanding about my gay self. And
my gay self,
exactly. And
you
also,
and your gay self.
it was a dark time because I was in a depression after my mom had passed.
Yeah.
And so, coming here, I can look back now and see I turned my back on people that had known me for long periods of time because I was trying to figure out and find who I was. And it took a really long time. It used to blow me away that, like, if I hadn't been going through that, I probably would have been able to shape and become the person. But I didn't know anybody, and they didn't know me, and I didn't feel like, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about friendships before, like forming friendships. Did it, the friendships that you have now in recovery, did it take some time to establish them?
Oh, yeah. I think it's fortunate we have an easier time than someone who's going to the bars or whatever.
Of course, yeah.
But it's like the ones that are lasting. There's something in the beginning that causes me to causes me to be drawn to them. But as far as the ones that like are really kind of, in my mind, if we can sit together without talking, if I can just be in your presence without needing to fill up the space, that's pretty amazing. And that just doesn't happen.
Right.
Especially because initially it's like we, like in other relationships, we send our representative. Like I'm trying to be who I think you might want me to be because I want you in my life. And it is not until I get to a place where it's like, you know what, I'm just going to be me. You're either going to be in my life or you're not going to be in my life. And I think that because we have this kind of work going, we're working on this end and that end. And, that's why I say it's like, it's super easy. But yeah.
Yeah. I think for me anyway, the establishing friendships it's something that takes time in general for me. Just because I think this is someone told me recently, they were like, Anthony, there are cat people and there are dog people and you're more of the cat, I think that's probably an accurate assessment. I've gone on dates before where a guy would say to me, I didn't think you liked me. And I'm like, I did, or I do, I do. I'm just not.
No, exactly.
I hate the way that I've been talking about myself in like last episode to now, because I sound like so frigid. But I think anyone who knows me knows I'm not.
Yeah, exactly.
I love in the way that I love. So friendships, it's to the point of friendships, going to friendships. It takes me some time, I just need to know.
I just think it's a spectrum for people that like the ones that I'm super close to now that I really care about, like you or whatever.
Yeah.
It's moving closer to family. Like I'm moving away from this idea of just friendship. You mean more to me than that.
Yeah.
It requires work and it requires time.
Yeah. You know what it is that I'm very skeptical when I meet,
you should be.
Yeah. I'm very skeptical when I first meet.
Discerning.
I am discerning. Yeah.
But exactly. Because it's like, we don't just automatically, just because we're feeling better, we have time or whatever, that we let go of the trauma.
Right.
There's some and you probably know.
I don't know it's about my trauma.
I think that more will be revealed, as they say. And sometimes there are things that I have not been able to identify, that I haven't worked through because I probably wasn't ready. And I become ready slowly, or if I'm not ready and I see it in somebody else, I shut down. And so it's like, I feel like I want to take my time, because the worst is I struggle after every time someone relapses.
You told me, yeah.
And it's not as intense as it was early on, but I'm also kind of a little more mindful. Like we have a few folks who come to the club and they are dealing with mental challenges or whatever.
Yeah, mental health issues.
And I want to be loving and supportive. I'm very cordial, but as far as one day I was I'm already like not trying to fuck with you when I'm on my break. I got 50 minutes. I'm not sure. But I was coming up the stairs and one of them was like all friendly. Hey, how's it going? I wanted to give a hug. And I'm all, I can't. And I very politely, but it's like, no, I'm sorry. I do not want to give you the impression that this door is open. Because.
Is it because of someone you just don't generally like, or?
No, I don't dislike the person. There's no way to get to a different place with them. I don't know that they're able to.
That's okay. Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, you're saying it's like, I don't know that this person is as present as they can be.
Yeah. I like what you said earlier about there being like a continuum. I think that's what you said, because it's not, there are so many varying degrees of like friendliness.
Yeah.
And as I get older, I notice that there's like, you have your handful of people that are your go-tos, I think there was a time when I would get in my head about like, oh, look at this big group of people that's traveling together and doing
I know, all the time. Yeah.
And then
they usually fall
well, that's my point.
They usually just break,
they usually fall apart.
Sit back and whatever and watch them cannibalize themselves.
No. And you know what? And I've been in recovery for over 10 years and it happens all the time. Yeah.
And I realized okay, so there are some people we may not be chummy now, but our time may come.
Yeah.
And it's always happened that way, where all of a sudden it's like 1 minute you're over there, and then we get to know each other. And this is what I was saying, that it's not that I'm not open to getting to know this individual different. It's just that one of the ways that I start figuring out if this is something we need to be able to have conversation and have connection and feel, and I feel like, unfortunately, this person is still in a place where they're using manipulation because they probably don't know anything else. And so I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel like I'm the person for them. It's like I said, I'm gonna love you from across the street. It's like I don't have a poker face. And so when I see nonsense coming, I'm like, I recognize it. And it's one of the challenges in recovery too, because when people we lose a lot of people.
Yeah.
People go for whatever reason, they pass on or whatever. And even if it doesn't feel like it's affecting me, it affects me.
Yeah. There's some people, I think everyone has a saturation point, and there's some people, like a good friend that hit me up today, and I love hanging out with him, but I can't give it too much time because at some point he'll start saying, he can be very negative. And by negative, I mean he'll say mean things to me. And I know he's trying to be funny, but I'm like, there's nothing funny about what you're saying.
And I shouldn't have to tell you.
And it's not a personality trait. So there are just some people where they're I have a saturation point. I mean, in general, I need time to myself. If I'm traveling, for example.
Oh my God. It's I have to be very mindful because I talked about it a lot, where a really close friend of mine, we traveled to Palm Springs and then we had a falling out. We have a better relationship now, but it's that was the thing. It's if we leave the city limits, I mean, even going to South San Francisco,
right,
and you start to show your ass in that way, that's going to really do a number.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. It's like, I need to feel safe. I need some security, and that's not security.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Don't be showing your ass and like, that's nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, going back to this idea of being a cat, I think, I very much am. I'm thinking about my cat and how it takes him some time to. I remember when he first moved in, he packed his stuff and came to my house. He's like, when I first brought my cat home from the SPCA, he was terrified and he ran immediately under my bed. And I didn't want to pull him out because I'm like, he's scared. I'm going to give him his space. And then at some point I lured him out with treats and he came out with some treats and then he sat in my lap and I pet him and we've been inseparable since.
Nice.
And
so it's kind of the same.
I feel a little bit. I just need, I think for me, and I don't know if this is, I don't know. I don't think it's neurotic. It feels healthy to me.
I think everybody can lure you with treats.
Yeah.
Come on. He's like,
I do like a treat.
Anthony's sitting in my lap right now. I'm rubbing his head. I'm like, that's hot.
Lure me with snacks. It's so funny. I had, I just finished this rotation at my pre-doc and this girl and I, we shared an office. And we never spoke to each other, but we had a treat box and we would communicate in treats.
Oh, I love that.
I'd add new treats. She would add new treats. It was really cute.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And in the end, we had a bit of we chatted a bit and I was saying, oh yeah, our language was snacks and treats. Yeah. So I think,
feed me, bitch.
Yeah. I think it does take me, it does take me some time to feel close. And then the other part of that, and then maybe this is a bit of trauma and when I do get close, sometimes that can be a little terrifying for me. There's
well, it's risky.
Of course. Yeah. I mean,
it's like anything.
That's where this is one of those examples where I think when we talk about romantic or platonic relationships where there's still friendships break up and that hurts.
Or in recovery, people relapse. Or they move away. And recently, I had to, not even recent, I always talk about my friend Franklin. I love Franklin.
Oh, yeah.
Franklin moved to New York. And so I was hanging out with Franklin and Jason and Zachary, and we were Franklin was always coming up with fun things for us to do, going to restaurants or whatever. And it's not something that I was initiating. So it was nice. It was really nice. And then when he moved away, it's we still are chummy, but it's not that thing. And it only happens when he comes back. And I realized I love that. I love having, kind of set folks to, but I had to realize that the landscape changes, and folks have their things to do and they hang out with other people. And I found myself when I would see Jason and Zachary hanging out with other people, it's I'm always, in the beginning I was a little jealous, and then I was like, yeah, you know what? Why don't you flip back on some of the pictures when you were hanging out with people without them,
Yeah. And we've talked about that too, about there was that talk I heard where there was this scholar explaining what adult friendships are made of.
Yeah.
Right. And she was talking about these 3 rules, we have to be flexible. We have to accept that people are going to come and go, and that's not a reflection of the quality of the relationship.
No, not at all.
I
just really I have gotten to the place where I really enjoy the time, and I'm good. I also am in love with the fact that I like being with me, and that I don't have to rely on being with someone else to be okay. It's a bonus.
When you were talking about people relapsing, what you were reminding me of is, there are some people, you're right, that I get close to, and there is a part of me that feels like I have to be a bit guarded about my emotional investment because they disappear.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they don't show up, or
or the worst is you build a friendship and then sometimes without any kind of word, they break it off or whatever.
Right. And it's hard not to take that kind of stuff personally.
Exactly. Yeah. It's what did I do? What did I do? And
yeah.
Yeah.
I think, forgot where I was going with this. I think that's another thing I say a lot. I forget where I was going with this. Well, with respect to establishing relationships, I was just thinking about when they do, not necessarily that they don't work out, but when, say, like, needs change. And I think that's the part, like, thinking about what it takes to be flexible, you know. Yeah. Like my two closest friends, my two best friends, my best friend Tim, who moved to New York, and my best friend Stephania, who she was living in New York and then she moved to Miami and now she's back in California. She's in Newport. Look at me giving all her government. And you know,
doxing her.
Yeah, doxing her. And so these are people that I'm still in touch with. I love them very much. When I talk to them, you know, we pick up where we left off. I saw my friend Rebecca the other day and I haven't spoken to her in over 5 years. And it was like we picked up where we left off. And, you know, my goal is to stay in that spirit, you know, and like not to try to hold anything.
Yeah.
For, you know.
Well, the way that I do that is remind myself that I have a life. Mm-hmm. And to continue to have a life, continue to do things so that I grow my spiritual self and I grow my life or whatever. So that way I can appreciate that, you know, folks are going to do what they need to do. And I have the opportunity to reach out as often as I can. You know, I have to pay attention to that because I fall short sometimes in that. And I don't know. I want to be better.
I want to be better too. One of the things that I've been working on is, or want to work on, or have been working on, is being more social and like meeting new people and trying new things.
And you're going to,
yeah,
new experiences.
Yeah, you know, there's, you know, a lot of my time is, I have so very little time to myself right now. Mm-hmm. But you know, I have very clear ideas of once, like, you know, I have more flexibility.
Yeah.
The kind of things that I want to do.
Go hang out at the ice cream store.
You know, I just want to do shit. You know, I feel like, you know what it is, Louis? I feel like I haven't been living my life.
But you have been living.
I have been living.
You haven't been living the.
I haven't been well, I have been living my life. I just feel the feeling, Louis, is like there's just like this tightness in my chest. You know, there's like this, and I just want to not have that. And
I understand.
And the next step to me feels like, okay, well, the way we kind of dissolve whatever that is by having more experiences, you know, going out into the world and exploring and trying new things and all of that. And some of that is taking certain risk with people, you know, it's like hanging out with people maybe that, I don't know, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, there was something that I was going to say. It's like, so,
okay. You lost it too?
I'm lost. I'm at a complete loss. Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. You can lose things.
I know.
But yeah, friendships can be difficult. I remember I had this friend in, was it grad school? It doesn't matter. It was years ago. And, it was my first year of college. And I absolutely loved this girl. Her name was Rachel. And Rachel and I, we like hung out all the time. And it was a very sweet relationship. And I remember when our last day came that we had to, you know, go to our respective homes. She was from Texas and I was living in Pennsylvania at the time. I remember sobbing because I was like, oh my God, like I'm never going to see her again. And then after that, like I would try contacting her and she never took any of my calls. She never replied to any of my text messages. I was like, wow, she just like disappeared just like that. I never heard from her again.
Did you ever talk to her again?
No, never again.
Oh my God. It's like she got back and said, no, you don't need to know.
Yeah, I thought that was wild. I think I don't know how old I was. I was maybe 19.
She was 20. A ghost. She was like, you know how these movies have this person that comes back and guides you and is your best friend. And then all of a sudden the person says, no, that person's been dead for 30 years.
Yeah. So in all of the friendships that I have now in recovery, they've taken a long time. You know, it's sharing space and like, you know, opening up and all of that.
We talk about learning from relationships that go sour. like in recovery, you know how sometimes, you get to the 9th step, and for those who don't understand what the 9th step is in recovery, is when you start to make amends for the behavior that you had, for harms or whatever that you cause individuals. And there were some friendships that, whatever, while you were drinking and using, sometimes we weren't able to show up the way we were supposed to show up. And then when it came time to make amends, we obviously had some people who were so happy that we got sober, that we got better, that they just wanted that for us. And then we had people who were like, yeah, no, I don't, I'm happy that you're doing what you need to do, but I don't want you, like, I don't want, kind of like what I said, I don't want this to look like there's a door being left open so that you can,
right.
And so I feel like it is in those relationships and the feelings that I get and the not wanting to ever feel that way again that causes me to be better for the future, because that's when we can make living kind of like amends to folks and say.
Right. And you're talking about the lessons we learn when we have friendships and they don't work out.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think part of like what I think part of what I've learned is, and this is going back to step work, is what was my part in those relationships that didn't work out. And I think it's also possible to like feel like I'm going to go back to what I said before. What I said before was, I think every relationship is a perfect relationship. Mm-hmm. That relationship is going to function perfectly
if we stand still and do nothing.
Right. But by that, I mean that we're brought together with people for whatever reason that we're brought together. And whatever manifests in that relationship because you have those two people in that relationship. Okay. Right. And, some people might say, oh, like you always take a lesson away from something, or everything happens for a reason. That's not necessarily language that I would use. But what I will say is that I do think, again, when any two people come together, that stuff isn't a coincidence, that there's something happening within that relationship that is supposed to happen based on like the experiences that a person has had, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I realize that gets a little kind of like problematic when we're talking about like abusive relationships, right? Like I understand that. And I would venture to say that we can take something away from all of the relationships that we've been in, either current or past. Last thing I'll say is, when things don't work out, I don't necessarily think that it's because, I mean, we take what we need and we leave the rest, right? I mean, I don't mean to speak in platitudes, but that's essentially where I'm going.
Ideally, we take what we need and we leave the rest, but I think maybe the struggle comes when we don't know that balance.
I think the struggle is when we try to hold on too hard, to too much, like when we try to have all of our needs met through one person.
Yeah, I used to always talk about like this idea of like sometimes we hold on to relationships too long, and we sometimes need to let them go and grow in the direction that they need to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
100%. 100%.
Because it's like it blows you away when like when someone is toxic as hell in a relationship with you, but they move on and then they have this healthy relationship.
That's crazy you said that, because some of the people that I was hanging out with a couple of weekends ago, they were talking about how all of their ex-boyfriends like met the love of their life after they broke up with them. These were straight women, but they were talking about like all of their ex-boyfriends. They had like met someone, fell in love, and then got married. I've heard of that happening before. I know like a few ex-boyfriends ago, one of my ex-boyfriends when I was in my 20s, when I broke up with him because he was fucking batshit crazy, he ended up, the guy who was seeing after me, they were together for a few years, and that guy ended up leaving him in the same way that I left, because it was just, whatever, he has his problems.
Well, that's helpful to know. It's like, I'm all, okay, it wasn't me, but it's like if you're really on that journey of self-discovery and trying to figure out, you say, okay, yeah, I could take this and I could take this information and use it to kind of hopefully improve me or get myself, I don't know, ready. Or in that case, it's like, I dodged a bullet.
Yeah. There's a line from The Portrait of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde where he says, the worst thing a person can say is forever. Like, I love you forever.
Oh my God. Yeah. Cause I was like, hello.
I love you forever. I want this forever.
The following week, I start to see the cracks in your armor.
I think that's the hardest part. I think the hardest part of any relationship is allowing for another person to be human.
Oh God.
Right. Yeah. There's something that happens, for example, when you're in a romantic relationship, we stop treating them like our friends.
Yeah.
And I know I'm being very general here, but we hold our lovers, our romantic partners, to a standard that sometimes I think is unfair.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't hold it for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a generosity that we extend to our friends.
I was talking to someone about, like, you can kind of tell when you've healed from death. Or, like, I mean, obviously, it's not as simple as I'm going to make it, but
it's like a left-hand turn world.
No. Yeah. Okay, so when someone you love passes away, or
yes,
someone you love, and we hold them up, and when they pass away, all of a sudden we're like only speaking about the good thing, good parts, and nothing else. And I always know that I've begun the healing, or I'm at a much better place when I can start to acknowledge their faults. Like when I'm all, they were an asshole, they were this, like they owe me money, they were this or whatever, instead of like, oh, they were such a good person and whatever, you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that simple, but it's like, it is that simple that like once I can clear away the smoke screen and I can start seeing things a little more clearly and realize I'm actually glad they're dead.
I think actually you're onto something here, because two thoughts. First thought, when a relationship, so some of the hardest relationships to get over are the ones that are short. And the reason why that is my theory, is that when you're in that relationship, it's all rising action. There's like a lot of intensity, there's a lot of romance, and you're kind of existing in a fantasy land for quite some time, right? When the relationship ends during that moment, during that time, it's so easy to recall the intensity, right? And the truth is that you weren't there wasn't enough time for you to be grounded by what it means to be with like another human being. Right. So there's something about like the fantasy, right? Like, you didn't travel with them. You haven't, had like full conversations. You haven't met each other's families. Right. So there's a way like the fantasy starts to shift. Right. So I think that's the first idea. The other idea is that when you're in a relationship, romantic or platonic, or in community, there's a way that we can have, again, fantasies about what it's supposed to look and sound like, right? And when it falls short of those fantasies, we become incredibly disappointed, right? Expectations breed resentments. And I find that if I allow for there to be room for me to grow and the other person to grow, and like for my community to grow, then I'm a lot less rigid.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But we have to create that room.
We have to. I was thinking about too something else along with like what you were talking about. Those newer relationships, it's that what if? What about like that longing for like or that the fact that I didn't have that information is like because you know how when you're like, oh God, if they get together, especially if they get together with somebody else right away, and you're like.
Yeah, can feel soul crushing.
Oh yeah,
that can feel soul crushing. No one likes that. No one likes rejection. No one likes to feel like they're less than. What I would say is you aren't.
Yeah,
you aren't less than.
Not at all.
And I would also say that when I pull the lens back and I look at the nature of my relationships or the relationships that I see people around me in. There is an impermanence to them, and that's fine. And that I get into trouble when I'm trying to keep things the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. Like I can remember being a teenager and like my first love, I remember when it didn't, you break up and it's devastating because I'll never feel this again.
No, I'm not.
This was the only person I remember my first love was this guy named Daniel. When I was like a teenager. Yeah, I was still a teen during that time. And I was madly in love with Danny. Mm-hmm. And when we broke up, I was absolutely devastated. And the thoughts that I had were, I'm never going to love someone the way I love this person. There's no one's ever and it was so crazy, but obviously
you meet the next person. Squirrel.
Well, you grow up, you realize that, relationships will ebb and flow. You realize that no, there isn't just one person, that you can meet other people, that love is a choice.
Yeah.
That true. Love is something you cultivate. Well, love is a choice. In my opinion.
Okay. So no, it is a choice.
It's a choice.
But at some point, you lose the choice, don't you?
Do you believe in love? What are you saying?
Okay, so like to kind of before you fall in love, is it really a choice?
Well, falling in love,
like if I'm in love with you or whatever, I can't just say, oh no, I choose not to.
Listen, there's falling in love. And one of the other things that I've heard is there's arriving in love, right? There's something about falling in love. There's something about that feels really unsettling because you're falling, right? And it's right. Or you could arrive in love.
Who arrives in love?
I think it's very intentional. I think you have two people that come together who are like, hey, I'm developing these feelings,
Yeah. Okay. So I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, but I don't think that a lot of people are there. I think that's advanced shit.
Okay. I think that's true. I think you're 100%. I think you're right.
But maybe that's the goal. Folks want to arrive
because here's the thing is that the feeling of falling in love, this is well documented and well studied. There's so many hormones raging through our body, the oxytocin gets released and we love that feeling of connection. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of passion and intensity, and that is not sustainable.
No.
It's not. You wear yourself out, right? And when you're making decisions in that state, you're essentially fucking drunk. You're drunk in love, right? Mm-hmm. You're drunk, and it may not feel sexy to sit down and have a conversation about something, but I think that's how you arrive in love. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'll be the one who says I'm a Virgo this time.
Yeah.
I'm a Virgo and I'm also an INFJ. Have you ever done your Myers-Briggs?
I have, but
you don't remember what yours is? Yeah. So I'm also an INFJ. And so this is, I have certainly have had the experience of falling in love.
Yeah.
But sometimes we can fall in love with people who aren't right for us.
Yeah. Oh, a lot.
Right. And I think the falling that's part of it. It's like sometimes maybe it's not sexy, but sometimes you have to pump the brakes and say, hey, what are we doing here?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So, are we landing the plane?
We are landing the plane.
Yeah, that felt like a very natural, end there. I think I'm buying time so that Louis can pull up the script, and if he doesn't find it in a couple seconds, why don't you just read off of this one?
Yeah, so the Castro Country Club is a safe and sober community center for all and a refuge for the LGBTQIA recovery community.
We provide programs and services that help change lives by supporting personal growth. I'm reading upside down.
Exactly. And our vision is to reduce the suffering of addiction by connecting people to community opportunity and support.
You can find more information, including all the ways to contact us at www.castrocountryclub.org/podcast.
And catch every new episodes Monday when they drop on wherever you listen to our podcast. Yes.
Okay, we love you. Bye.